so glad to see you here today. Thank you so much for taking this time for your well being. I know it's not always easy. And our topic for today is about setting compassionate boundaries, which is such an important topic and can be a really tricky topic too. So I actually decided to break this one up into two short videos, with this one being about why it's so important that we set boundaries. And the next one will be about how we can go about doing it in an effective and kind way. So look out for that one next. But to start this one off, let me ask you, have you ever said yes to something that you really didn't have the capacity to do? I'm pretty sure that we've all been there at some point or another, right? And so maybe someone really wanted you to do something for them. And so they lovingly pressured you into saying yes. Or a lot of times it comes out of a feeling of obligation or guilt. And so we don't say no, we say yes, whatever the reason may be. I know that we've all been there. And then as teachers, there's also that workload that we take on too. Like, I don't need to ask you all if you've ever taken home work or stayed way past your contract time to get things done, because that almost seems like a prerequisite expectation for us as teachers sometimes, as wrong as that may be. So today, instead of looking at this feeling of obligation or guilt to say yes to others, or feeling like you have to take work home or else everything's going to fall apart, we're going to look at compassion for ourselves instead, and why it's so important for us to set boundaries out of compassion for ourselves. So I want you to think for a second. When you are saying yes, when you really don't want to, how does that make you feel? So often we're thinking about that other person, but I want you to think about yourself as a friend for a second. Is it really okay for you to put yourself in that position all of the time? Or if we're always lesson planning every Sunday, what is that doing to us as humans? Or to other people in our lives that want our attention too? And so I'm not saying that we start saying no all the time, but it's okay to say no if saying no is what we really need to do to show ourselves even just a little bit of self compassion. And in those moments, instead of feeling guilty and letting that drill sergeant self talk come in that we've talked about before, we can replace it with a friend's voice that gives you permission and grace to leave that work at school, or to just say, I'm so sorry, I would if I could, but I just can't. And I don't know about you all, but when I say yes to too many things, or I bring home work too much, I start to become a version of myself that I don't want to be. And my time is taken away from myself, my family, my other loved ones, and I get stressed and I get crabby. And sometimes you can even be resentful towards that person that you've said yes to, or towards yourself for bringing stuff home. And that's just not fair at all. So, by setting compassionate boundaries for ourselves, we're not only taking care of ourselves and our families, but we're actually benefiting how we relate to other people, especially when times of conflict arise, because we're not going to be bringing those resentments out on them in an unfair way. In fact, here's a whole list of benefits that come around from setting compassionate boundaries for ourselves. So go ahead and take a look at what some of these are. And so when it comes down to it, we need to start trying to change our mindset about setting boundaries from a place of feeling guilty to one of feeling like, hey, we've got to look out for ourselves too. And when we have the capacity to say yes, definitely, let's do it. I'm all in. But when we have the choice to say no, and we get that gut feeling that it's what we need to do, let's start respecting that, because it's there for a reason. And usually, if we honor that feeling, everything will not only be okay, but we'll have a feeling of relief and empowerment that is really at the core of self-care. So I want you to join me for the next video to learn more about how we can make this happen in a effective way and in a way that's compassionate to others too. And I'll see you there.